there's nothing as big as what's in front of us. And I named the first fund 10T, 10 trillion, because that's where I thought the asset, the space, the digital asset ecosystem would get to. When it was 300 billion, I thought it could get to 10 trillion in 10 years, which would be a 30x. And I just thought no one would ever believe me if I told them, oh yeah, I thought I saw a 30x coming. So I put it into the name of my fund. But the reality is that you're probably heading to much higher numbers.
Dan Tapiero is the managing partner, chief executive officer, and chief investment officer of One Roundtable Partners, a private equity focused exclusively on investing at the growth stage in the digital asset space. He's also the chief executive officer and managing partner of 10T Holdings, a growth equity fund focused on investing in mid to late stage digital asset ecosystem companies. According to Dan, 10T represents $10 trillion, his conservative prediction for the digital asset space in the very near future. He made this prediction several years ago when the industry's market capitalization was only a paltry $300 billion. The veteran macro investor has kept his conviction in digital assets strong and unwavering since then. Dan recently had an insightful conversation with Natalie Brunell, during which he gave his outlook on Bitcoin, Ether, and the entire digital asset space, especially as we head into what promises to be a very pleasant and bullish year for the industry. According to the renowned macro guru, even a conservative price prediction takes Bitcoin to $100,000 per coin during this next bull cycle. Dan is also predicting another $200,000 increase from there during the 2028 to 2029 bull cycle. By then, Dan expects Bitcoin to be trading above $350,000 per coin. Like ARK Invest, Cathie Wood, and others that have given $1 million predictions for the leading digital asset, Dan also sees Bitcoin hit that magical number. We will now bring you clips from the interview as Dan highlights his precise predictions for Bitcoin, why he believes the leading crypto asset is so life-changing, and the sheer brilliance of Satoshi's invention. Please ensure you stick around to the end of the video so you don't miss Dan's $10 trillion prediction. Also, ensure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications bell for more videos like this. Thanks and enjoy the video.
What really struck me was that, first of all, that there had been 40 years of cryptographic and scientific research that had come before the publishing of the white paper. So I was just like, this Satoshi and some random guy put some paper out there and some coin. It never made sense. But then when I realized that there was a historical, intellectual path, that this was not something out of nowhere, that gave me like real pause. I mean, in a positive way. I thought, wow, okay, maybe, these 8 footnotes and, how this thing actually works. It's more of an engineering paper. I was terrible at that. So, it made it hard for me. The second thing was that when I realized, okay, that this was the result of many years of work, academic work, that the paper solved this problem that I'd never heard of, which was the Byzantine generals problem. Now, who walks around, and says, oh yeah, I know the Byzantine generals problem? I mean, no one has heard of this. It's ridiculous. And so I was like, oh, this is a problem that people have been trying to solve for hundreds of years or whatever it is. And I didn't know that. And wait a second, this 8-page paper solves the Byzantine generals problem. Problem of distributed trust. How do you trust another counterparty without an intermediary, right? How do you send value to another counterparty without an intermediary? So I had no idea that this was anything. I just didn't even know that it existed, this problem. So then I thought, wow, like this solves a problem that math geniuses sitting around doing their PhDs have never been able to figure out. And this guy, he figures out the problem and he just gives it to the world for free. And that was also another thing that was hard to understand or hard to believe in, because, people want to patent things right away. And it just was so out of the ordinary. And then I saw the power of this distributed, network, and the value of a network that was decentralized truly and was completely global, right? And there was nobody controlling it. and I just thought, you know, everything of value will eventually be put on this network. Now, whether it's specifically the Bitcoin network or some of the other chains, that have developed, like that's not up for me. That's not up to me to decide. I think that I think Bitcoin and Ethereum are the true collateral of the space. I think Bitcoin, of course, is a little more advanced. Those two have achieved network effect, and I think have demonstrated Metcalfe's law. And there might be other ones. I mean, I love the fact that Bitcoin is proof of work. So for me, proof of work is like the most hardcore, the greatest invention. I mean, the way that electricity in our world can secure things in the digital world, it's like mind blowing. I was blown away by that. Like how he bridged the real world to this digital sphere. And I mean, that's just genius. I don't think there's been anything like that in finance.
Dan compares the intricate work Satoshi did on Bitcoin to black skulls, one of the most important concepts in modern financial theory. The model, which was developed in 1973, estimates the theoretical value of derivatives based on other investment instruments, taking into account the impact of time and other risk factors. Despite the development of other pricing models, the BSM model is still considered groundbreaking in modern finance. Yet Dan believes it pales in contrast to Bitcoin. This is why the renowned macro guru, with decades of experience working with big names like Stan Druckenmiller, Julian Robertson, Steve Cohen, and Lord Rothschild, predicts that Bitcoin's price will continue to rise rapidly, especially as we head into the 2030s. To begin with, he is certain that the leading crypto asset will hit $100,000 before the end of this crypto bull market. That will be a 426% increase from current prices. Yet Dan describes his prediction as a pretty conservative one for Bitcoin. Let's get back to the interview.
This digital asset ecosystem, to me, certainly is the most interesting investment that that I've been involved with, and I think of all time. Like I don't even like trading a currency or a bond or an emerging market or owning a stock. There's nothing as big as what's in front of us. And I named the first fund 10T, 10 trillion, because that's where I thought the asset, the space, the digital asset ecosystem would get to. When it was 300 billion, I thought it could get to 10 trillion in 10 years, which would be a 30x. And I just thought no one would ever believe me if I told them, oh yeah, I thought I saw a 30x coming. So I put it into the name of my fund. But the reality is that you're probably heading to much higher numbers. 25, 50 trillion, I don't know. I wanted to have the name of a fund that I was pretty sure I was going to be right on. So that wasn't necessarily my view. I said, look, a 30x return in the traditional world, no one makes 30x on anything in the public markets. I mean, the markets that trade. So I thought that was enough. But the reality is, yeah, if there's 500 trillion of total wealth or whatever the number is, even 5% is 25 trillion. There are a lot of assets like real estate people invest in often as a store of value. Art, paintings, store of value. I mean, Bitcoin could really take a chunk of that store of value capital that's out there, right? People own equity also because it's a hedge against that inflation, right? So if you think of all the assets that people own just because they want to keep up with inflation, you could have a big chunk of that go to Bitcoin. I just don't think it happens that quickly. And, we have several hundred investors in the fund and they're from all around the world. And I've talked to, over 1,000 investors, potential investor meetings, et cetera. And, I hear firsthand the resistance from people who you might not think would be resistant, even now. And so I just think it takes longer. I think this next bull run into 2025, we'll see Bitcoin over 100,000. I think that's a pretty conservative estimate. My target for when I first started looking at this deeply in 19 was always around 250 to 350,000 on Bitcoin. That was just a number, that was to me a reasonable number to get to by 2029. So in 2019, that was sort of my thought. By the end of the decade, that's a reasonable number to get to. But I think Kathy has come out and said, Kathy Wood, did she say $1 million? $1 million? And I can get to those numbers too. Yeah, based on, but that might be, maybe it's 2035 or 2038. I mean, I don't know. Or it could be earlier. This is one of those things where, Bitcoin is the greatest performing asset of all time. And it's been up over 200% annualized. However, it comes with 7 drawdowns of 60 to 70% or more. And in the traditional world, there is no investor for whom that is acceptable. So the real challenge is just to own it and hold on. Like, that's the barrier. Like, if you're not a believer, you're not going to make the money.
Dan Tapiero is certain that Bitcoin is going to hit $1 million per coin, but compared to someone like Kathy Wood, his time frame for when that happens is slightly farther than Wood's 2030 prediction. The reason for the longer time frame is because of the much more volatile state of the digital asset space, especially compared to traditional assets. According to the 10T founder and managing partner, that high volatility is still going to give many institutional investors a pause about investing too heavily in the space. The fear about the industry's high volatility is acceptable, especially for institutional investors who are used to much smaller drawdowns during bear markets. However, there is every reason to believe that the digital asset space is quickly maturing. The more it matures, the more reductions we see in volatility. Hopefully, this will further incentivize more institutional investors in and out of the United States to come aboard. What are your thoughts on Dan's outlook and predictions for Bitcoin? Please drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Also, ensure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.